not now.
Okay.
But she's okay. Yeah, she has come back. The trip was very good, but now she has a lot of work, and so she cannot come. Well, so let's see. We were here. Walter still slept. I don't know if all of you could read this part. I don't know where you are. But well,
I follow the record, and I am aware that this Sean Andrews is going to go to Paris to the university.
Yes, this is where we left him. They are on the train to Paris. Walters, you remember, was the one who helped him to find his place there in this program. And well, they are on the train. Walter's still sleeping, and Andrews cannot sleep because he's so enthusiastic.
No? Right.
Sorry, Gabriela.
Excited about it, right?
He's so excited,
Anxious.
Anxious, happy, yes, to be free from the army, that he cannot sleep. And a phrase comes to his mind. Here it says, a phrase out of some translation of the Iliad came to his head. Ambrosial night, night ambrosial unending. Yes, of course, from the Iliad. So you see, his spirit is full of happiness, no? And then Andrews began to think of the men he had left behind. They were asleep at this time of night in barns and barracks, or else standing on guard with cold, damp feet and cold hands, which the icy rifle barrel burned when they tended it. He might go far away out of sound of the tramp of marching, away from the smell of overcrowded barracks, where men slept in rows like cattle. But he would still be one of them, no? So in the end, he is one of them. He is one of the soldiers. He would not see an officer pass him without an unconscious movement of servility. He would not hear a bugler without feeling sick with hatred. So the mark that these months in the army have left on him are I mean, eternal, no? It isn't easy to forget all that. If he could only express these thwarted lives, the miserable dullness of industrialized slaughter. This phrase is, for me, is so strong, no? He calls the war industrialized slaughter, which is real. Yes, Teresa.
Dos Pasos is terrible in this paragraph. His criticism, no?
Yes, and I admire his capacity to create a compound noun like this, where all the strength of the situation is present, no? Because what is a war? It is industrialized slaughter, yes? It might have been almost worthwhile for him, for the others. It would never be worthwhile. But you are talking as if you were out of the woods. You are a soldier still, John Andrews. So although he has in a way escaped, but he is still a soldier, no? He cannot leave this. So then when he awoke, the sky was gray, the train was moving slowly. One of them says, God, these French trains are rotten, he said when he noticed that Andrews was awake. The most inefficient country I ever was in anyway. Inefficiency be damned, broke in Andrews, jumping up and stretching himself. He opened the window. The heating's too damned efficient. I think we are near Paris. The cold air with a flavor of mist in it poured into the stuffy compartment. Every breath was joy. Andrews felt a crazy buoyancy bubbling up in him. So you see, he's, in a state of exaltation. And then he says, liven up, for God's sake, man, he shouted. We are getting near Paris. We are lucky bastards, said Walter. So Andrews goes to find the others, and Walters goes to find the others, and Andrews, alone in the compartment, found himself singing at the top of his lungs. As the day brightened, the mist lifted off the flat linden green fields intersected by rows of leafless poplars. You see how the mist that we have already mentioned, yes, is also a character, because as they are approaching Paris, the mist lifted and started disappearing, no? And the colors started appearing. They passed brick kilns and clay quarries with reddish puddles of water in the bottom of them, crossed a jade green river, you see, so he starts paying attention to colors. Remember that Andrews is very sensitive to colors and nature, right? The train slowed down and went through several stations crowded with people on their way to work. Ordinary people in varied clothes with only here and there a blue or khaki uniform. So the situation is becoming more urban, not so war-connected. And then he says, Andrews was standing on the gray cement platform, sniffing smells of lumber and merchandise and steam. His ungainly pack and blanket roll he carried on his shoulder like a cross. He had left his rifle and cartridge belt carefully tucked out of sight under the seat. So what he has done is already something against the law. Because
Yes.
Claro, imagine, he left the rifle and the cartridge under the seat of the train. And for him, the package, his pack.
His pack
Yes,
was a cross.
Was a cross. Walters and 5 other men straggled along the platform towards him, carrying on, dragging their packs. There was a look of apprehension on Walter's face. Well, what do we do now, he said. Do, cried Andrews, and he burst out laughing. So this, I mean, this is wonderful. No? Now he feels he can do something. Then we go back to the situation at the barracks. Prostrate bodies in olive drab hid the patch of tender green grass by the roadside. The company was resting. Crisfield sat on a stump, morosely whittling at a stick with a pocket knife. Judkins was stretched out beside him. This is what we call, or they call in the case of Dos Passos, the cinematic eye. Yes, this technique of changing from one scenery to another one. Yes.
Cinematic
eye, ojo. Eye.
Okay.
What the hell do they make us do, this damn hiking for, Corp? Guess they are scared we'll forget how to walk. So obviously, Crisfield is critical of the situation. He says, well, they make us walk so as we don't forget how to walk. Well, ain't it better than loafing around your billets all day, thinking and cursing and wishing you was home? Spoke up the man who sat the other side, pounding down the tobacco in his pipe with a thick forefinger. It makes me sick, tramping round this way in ranks all day with the goddamn frogs staring at us, and they are laughing at us, I bet, broke in another voice. We'll be moving soon to the Army of Occupation, said Crisfield cheerfully. In Germany, it'll be a regular picnic. His expectations are in Germany, in Berlin, no? Because there he feels that he's going to be, well, of course, they are going to be the winners, no? The conquerors. Well, but of course, Crisfield has a very positive imagination, I would say. And do you know what that means? Burst out Judkins, sitting bolt upright. Do you know how long the troops is going to stay in Germany? 15 years. God, they couldn't keep us there that long, man. They can't do anything they goddamn please with us. We are the guys as is getting the raw end of this deal. It ain't the same with an educated guy like Andrews or Sergeant Coffin or them. They can suck around after white men and officers and get on the inside track. And all we can do is stand up and salute and say, yes, Lieutenant, no, Lieutenant, and let them ride us all they God and please. Ain't that gospel truth, Corporal? So you see, the importance, as I always say, the importance of all these soldiers that appear and disappear is to show that now all of them feel the same. They feel that they are, as it says, the raw end of the deal. They are the last, part of this deal. The diplomats are deciding what to do, but soldiers are there, obeying and saluting and walking. I guess you are right, Jatki. We get the raw end of the stick. This is...
They have no say.
They have no say,
do
yes.
with them whatever they want.
Yes. And I don't know, I haven't checked how long the Army of Occupation stayed in Germany. I haven't checked. But these poor men, yes, who wanted to go back to America, their homes are so far away. That damn yellow dog Andrews goes to Paris and gets schooling free and all that. Hell, Andy weren't yellow. Judkins. So Crisfield is defending Andrews always because for him he's his friend. Well, why did he go villaging around all the time like he knew more in the lieutenant as the lieutenant did? I reckon he did, said Crisfield. Anyway, you can't say that those guys who went to Paris did a goddamn thing more than any of the rest of us did. God, I ain't even had a leave yet. Well, it ain't no use crabbing. No, once we get home and folks know the way we've been treated, there'll be a great whole investigation. So Judkins hopes for an investigation of the way they had been treated, yes? Of course, that didn't happen, no? It makes you mad, though, to have something like that put over on you. Think of them guys in Paris having a hell of a time with wine and women, and we stay out here and clean our guns and drill. God, I'd like to get even with some of them guys. So Judkins is angry at Andrews and the others because they have been able to escape. The company tramped off along the muddy road. Their steps were all the same length. Their arms swung in the same rhythm. Their faces were cowed into the same expression. Their thoughts were the same. The tramp of their steps died away along the road. Birds were singing among the budding trees. The young grass by the roadside kept the marks of soldiers' bodies. A very sad ending, no, to this chapter. Well,
Yes.
Yes. You said something? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Here we get to part 5, the world outside, and this is directly connected to Andrews, yes? The one who is outside.
Andrews and Paris.
Andrews and Paris, that's right. Andrews and 6 other men from his division sat at a table outside the cafe opposite the guard list. He leaned back in his chair with a cup of coffee lifted, looking across it at the stone houses with many balconies. Steam, scented of milk and coffee, rose from the cup as he sipped from it. His ears were full of a rumble of traffic and the clacking of heels as people walked briskly by along the damp pavements. For a while, he did not hear what the men he was sitting with were saying. They talked and laughed, but he looked beyond their khaki uniforms and their boat-shaped caps unconsciously. He was taken up with the smell of the coffee and of the mist. A little rusty sunshine shone on the table of the cafe and on the thin varnish of wet mud that covered the asphalt pavement. Looking down the avenue, away from the station, the houses, dark gray, tending to greenish in the shadow and to violet in the sun, faded into a soft haze of distance. And at the end, he says, the sky was a faintly roseate gray. So although he was with his friends or his mates, he was not listening to what they were talking. He was
He's in his thoughts. He's in his thoughts.
exactly, and he's paying attention to the sounds. Remember that he's a musician, and to the colors, and he doesn't care what the others are talking. Walters was speaking. The first thing I want to see is the Eiffel Tower. Why do you want to see that? Said the small sergeant with a black mustache and rings round his eyes like a monkey. Why, man, don't you know that everything begins from the Eiffel Tower? If it weren't for the Eiffel Tower, there wouldn't be any skyscrapers. How about the Flatiron Building and Brooklyn Bridge? They were built before the Eiffel Tower, weren't they? Interrupted the man from New York. The Eiffel Tower is the first piece of complete girder construction in the whole world, reiterated Walters dogmatically. First thing I'm going to do is go to the Foliber shares. For me, me for the W's. This is very funny because, of course, this man wants to see the dancers, no?
Yes.
Better lay off the wild women, Bill, said Walters. I ain't going to look at a woman, said the sergeant with the black mustache. I guess I've seen enough women in my time anyway. The war's over anyway. You just wait, kid, till you fasten your lamps on a real Parisian, said a burly, unshaven man with a corporal stripes on his arm, roaring with laughter. Andrews lost track of the talk again. Yes, this is what I meant, Malena, when I said the cinematic eye. Yes, because when you are looking at a film, yes, you, in a way, the camera shows you what to look. No? And so the way what he's thinking appears, and then the voices of the men appear, and then they disappear again because you go back to his thoughts. Andrews lost track of the talk again, staring dreamily through half-closed eyes down the long straight street, where greens and violets and browns merged into a bluish-gray monochrome at a little distance. He wanted to be alone, to wander at random through the city, to stare dreamily at people and things, to talk by chance to men and women, to sink his life into the misty, sparkling life of the streets. The smell of the mist brought a memory to his mind. For a long while he groped for it, until suddenly he remembered his dinner with Henslow and the faces of the boy and the girl he had talked to on the boat. He must find Henslow at once. A second's fierce resentment went through him against all these people about him. Christ, he must get away from them all. His freedom had been hard enough won. He must enjoy it to the uttermost. Yes, so he doesn't want to be with all these soldiers talking about women or about the Eiffel Tower. You remember when he was with Henslow at this bar and there was a girl sitting at the next table? Well, this is the memory that came to his mind. Say, I'm going to stick to you, Andy, Walter's voice broke into his reverie. I'm going to appoint you the corps of interpreters. Andrews laughed. Do you know the way to the school headquarters? The air at TO said take the subway. I'm going to walk, said Andrews. You'll get lost, won't you? No danger, where's luck, said Andrews, getting to his feet. I'll see you fellows at the school headquarters, whatever those are. So long. Say, Andy, I'll wait for you there, Walters called after him. So Walters is going to mention Andrews as an interpreter because, of course, he speaks French. But Andrews leaves them. Andrews darted down a side street. He could hardly keep from shouting aloud when he found himself alone, free, with days and days ahead of him to work and think, gradually to rid his limbs of the stiff attitudes of the automaton. The smell of the streets and the mist, indefinably poignant, rose like incense smoke in fantastic spirals through his brain, making him hungry and dazzled, making his arms and legs feel light and as ready for delight as a crouching cat for a spring. His heavy shoes beat out a dance as they clattered on the wet pavement under his springy steps. he was walking very fast. So you see, he has a feeling of elation, yes, walking along the streets, yes, paying attention to, well, imagine in the streets of Paris, no, the places where they sell food, the markets, greens and oranges and crimsons of vegetables in a pushcart, to catch a vista down intricate streets, to look into the rich brown obscurity of a small wine shop where workmen stood at the counter sipping white wine. Oval, delicate faces, bearded faces of men, slightly gaunt faces of young women, red cheeks of boys, wrinkled faces of old women, whose ugliness seemed to have hidden in it, staringly, all the beauty of youth and the tragedy of lives that had been lived. The faces of the people he passed moved him like rhythms of an orchestra. Now, it is interesting because the description he gives of the city, and that's why I sent you different, information about different places in the city, is interesting because this city is the city after the war, but this is the First World War. And so the city is not as destroyed as it was after the Second World War, no? So that's why people are still, selling wine and selling food, etc. No. After much walking, turning always down the street, which looked pleasantest, he came to an oval with a statue of a pompous personage on a ramping horse, Place des Victoires. He read the name, which gave him a faint tinge of amusement. You remember why? Because I sent you the picture of the statue. I don't know if you could see it. This is the king, the Sun King, el Rey Sol. Yes.
Luis XIV.
Exacto. Esa es la estatua que él ve, la estatua de Luis XIV. And why do you think he's amused at the statue? Because, of course, this king was supposed to be the best king, the most wonderful king. But now, at this moment, after all this, this long time, he is nobody. And the place where the statue is called La Plaza de las Victorias. Yes. So for him, this is, for Andrews, this is very ironic, right? Because the French are not now the owners of half the world, as it was when Louis XIV was the king, no? And so that's why he looked quizzically at the heroic features of the Sun King and walked off laughing. I suppose they did it better in those days, the grand manner, he muttered. And his delight redoubled in rubbing shoulders with the people whose effigies would never appear astride ramping-eared horses in squares built to commemorate victories. No? So he prefers to be surrounded by normal people, people who would never be on a statue. Well, this is part of Dos Passos' irony too, no? To show that, these victories also finish and one day disappear, and that nothing is eternal, no? Yeah. He came out on a broad, straight avenue where there were many American officers he had to salute, and MPs and shops with white plate glass windows full of objects that had a shiny, expensive look. Another case of victories. You see, the same idea, no? Another case of victories, he thought as he went off into a side street, taking with him a glimpse of the bluish-gray pile of the opera, with its pompous windows and its naked bronze ladies holding lamps. He was in a narrow street full of hotels and fashionable barber shops, from which came an odor of cosmopolitan perfumery, of casinos and ballrooms and diplomatic receptions, when he noticed an American officer coming towards him, reeling a little. A tall, elderly man with a red face and a bottle nose. He saluted. The officer stopped still, swaying from side to side, and said in a whining voice, Shawnee, do you know where Henry's bar is? No, I don't, Major, said Andrews, who felt himself enveloped in an odor of cocktails. Of course, this American officer was drunk,
Yes.
completely
Yes.
drunk. You'll help me to find it, Shawnee, won't you? It's dreadful not to be able to find it. I've got to meet Lieutenant Travers in Henry's bar. The major steadied himself by putting a hand on Andrew's shoulder. A civilian passed them. Ding-dong, shouted the major after him. Ding-dong, Monsieur, how are Henry's bar? So the Ding-dong because he wants to say pardon, but he cannot speak because he is so drunk. The man walked on without answering. Now, isn't that like a frog not to understand his own language, said the major. So American officers, Americans, so proud of themselves, no? Always so, they feel that they are the center of the universe. And so he thought that he had said something in French. Of course,
Right.
claro,
How come the other man doesn't understand if he
of course,
speaks
because
so well?
he never used French. He said something.
Right.
Ah, my God. But there's Henry's bar, right across the street, said Andrew suddenly. Bon, bon, said the major. They crossed the street and went